Emergency services rushed to central Mogadishu in Somalia after a bomb attack by Al-Shabaab militants.
The explosion tore through a building. Gunfire erupted afterward. More details on this later in the news. Good evening. I'm CJ Hero.
And I am Nina Richie Alago Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. Now for the headlines. PNP seizes 3 million pesos worth of smuggled onions. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. vows to minimize foreign trips this year. Authorities release identity of gunman in California shooting. Van crash kills 2 children in Thailand. And Pentagon wants to donate Russian weapons to Ukraine. Authorities have intercepted this morning a motorized pump boat with smuggled onions in the coastal areas of Zamboanga City. PNP Seaborne Company Commander, Police Colonel Reynold Arino, says the boat was approaching the coastal barangay of Labuan when it was intercepted. Upon inspection, authorities discovered sacks of red onions worth 3 million pesos based on current market prices. According to the crew, the onions originated from India and were smuggled through an island in Tawi-Tawi. They were supposed to be delivered to markets in Mindanao through Zamboanga City. The Zamboanga City Bureau of Plants Industry says the shape of red onions is different from the breed in the origin country. Zamboanga City Mayor John Dalipe commended operatives of the PNP Seaborne Patrol with the confiscation of the contraband.
Those involved in the widespread smuggling of agricultural commodities in the country have been named and subpoenaed in a House investigation. Paulo Ramos has the details.
Sultan Kudarat's 2nd District Congressman Horacio Swansing Jr. has asked the House Committee on Ways and Means, headed by Albay Congressman Joey Salceda, to send a subpoena to brokers, importers, and facilitators to the Bureau of Customs who are allegedly involved in the widespread smuggling of agricultural products in the country. Swansing said this is why she filed House Resolution 311 with Nueva Ecija 1st District Congresswoman Micaela Angela Swansing, which aims to conduct an investigation in aid of legislation into the chronic smuggling of agricultural products that affects local farmers. According to Swansing, among the smuggling syndicates in the country are rice, sugar, onions, and cigarettes. Swansing said the effect of agricultural product smuggling has had a huge impact on local farmers, consumers, and the government, who are losing billions of pesos in uncollected taxes.
I, as principal author of House Resolution number 11, would like to request the Committee on Ways and Means to issue subpoenas for the following brokers, importers, facilitators allegedly involved in large-scale agricultural smuggling in local ports and around the Philippines.
Paulo Ramos for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Onion prices are expected to stabilize in the coming days with the arrival of around 1,200 metric tons of imported onions. The Bureau of Plant Industry and the Department of Agriculture project prices to hit 80 pesos per kilo. However, the imported onions are still not in the market. They still require a second border inspection. In Blumentritt Market in Manila, fresh onions cost 300 pesos per kilo, while lasona or shallots cost 200 pesos a kilo.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. said today he will refrain from frequently traveling abroad for this year. What prompted the president's decision? Let's hear more from Weng de la Fuente.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. vowed today to minimize his travel abroad for this year. During a panel interview in Malacanang, the president says he needs to put in detail the results of his previous trips. The chief executive adds that these achievements would result to nothing if he would continue his foreign visits. Marcos mentions the agreements, pledges, and other discussions made during his previous trips. The president also clarifies how the Philippines landed in the VIP club with Vietnam and Indonesia while market prices of commodities like onions are high. These Southeast Asian countries are categorized as the best performing economies in the region. Marcos says the high prices are caused by high inflation. However, the president boasts the country has lagged a 7.1% economic growth rate. He admits that he himself could not sleep at night because of the inflation. Marcos adds other countries are also facing high inflation, but the chief executive says prices of onions will stabilize following the entry of imported onions. The president believes that the country could not avoid importation and must have a 2-week buffer stock to prevent further increase in prices of onions and other products.
That's what I lose sleep every night over, is how to bring down inflation. So I'm determined to make sure that the inflation starts to come down in the first quarter and mag-normalize na.
Weng De La Fuente for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
The Maharlika Fund has found its way to the Senate. Let's hear more from Randy Bernardino.
The controversial proposal to create the Maharlika Investment Fund has reached the Senate. Senator Mark Villar authors Senate Bill number 1670, which aims to achieve the country's economic growth and sustainability through the Maharlika Fund. In the proposal, 50 billion pesos for the investment fund will be sourced from the Land Bank of the Philippines, 25 billion pesos from the Development Bank of the Philippines, and the dividends from Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas. Other funding could also be sourced out from government financial institutions identified by the BSP. Government-owned and controlled corporations, or GOCCs, are allowed to invest, depending on their investment strategies. A Maharlika Investment Corporation will be created to supervise the funding. The Joint Congressional Oversight Committee, to be created by the House of Representatives and the Senate, will monitor and evaluate the implementation of the law. Under Villar's proposal, the Board of Directors will include the Secretary of Finance as chairperson, a Chief Executive Officer to be appointed for Maharlika Investment Corporation, the Presidents of Land Bank and DBP, and 6 regular members as contributors. 5 independent directors will also be appointed from the private sector or the academe, business and investment sectors. A regular member of the Board of Directors will be appointed with qualifications of the following: 35 years old, a resident of the Philippines with good moral standing and reputation. The proposal states assets of the investment fund are exempted from any local and national taxes. Officials who violate or abuse Maharlika funds will face penalties from 10,000 pesos up to 5 million pesos and criminal liability. As chairman of the Senate Committee on Banks, Villar will possibly conduct hearings for his proposal. Senate President Juan Miguel Zubiri says the Senate will not fast-track its hearing on the proposal, but he assured that the proposal will go to the regular process of legislation. Zubiri says they will ask Villar what his plan is for the Wealth Fund, which is almost the same as the version approved by the House of Representatives. Randy Bernardino from Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
12 proposed bills will be prioritized by the House for approval in the return session of Congress. Nadine Aguilar tells us more.
After more than a month of vacation, the House of Representatives is back in session today. House Speaker Martin Romualdez said 12 major bills will be considered by congressmen to be approved before the next holiday of lawmakers on March 24 this year. Romualdez announced that it includes the following bills: enactment of enabling law for the natural gas industry, amendments to the Electric Power Industry Reform Act or EPIRA, Unified System of Separation, Retirement, and Pension for Uniformed Personnel. E-Government Act, National Land Use Act, National Defense Act, National Government Right-Sizing Program, Budget Modernization Bill, Department of Water Resources Act, establishing the Negros Island region, Magna Carta for Filipino seafarers, establishment of regional specialty hospitals. Romualdez said the remaining priority bills of the Marcos Jr. administration in the 19th Congress are all related to the government's economic recovery program from the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. Nadine Aguilar, for Matanang Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Oil companies are set to impose a big-time oil price hike effective midnight. As announced by Chevron Philippines, its price adjustments will be effective by 12:01 a.m. on Tuesday, January 24. 2 pesos and 80 centavos per liter will be imposed on gasoline, 2 pesos and 25 centavos per liter on diesel, and 2 pesos and 40 centavos per liter on kerosene. Pilipinas Shell and Sea Oil Philippines will impose the same price adjustments by 6 o'clock in the morning of the same day. Clean Fuel, on the other hand, will increase prices of its gasoline and diesel by 4 o'clock in the afternoon. The fourth round of increases is mainly caused by higher demand from China's reopening of its economy after 3 years of its zero-COVID policy.
The COVID-19 positivity rate in Metro Manila drops to 2.4% from 3.7% as of January 21st. In a tweet, Octa research fellow Dr. Guido David says no province in Luzon had an increase in positivity rate. He says many provinces also recorded a low positivity rate, or those less than 5%. Meanwhile, the Department of Health reported a 144 increase in the country's daily COVID-19 cases from 255 in January 21st to 399 cases on Sunday, January 22nd. The National Capital Region, or NCR, logged the highest number of cases in the last 2 weeks with 1,297, followed by Calabarzon with 628 and Central Luzon at 301.
The Department of Migrant Workers, or DMW, has vowed to bring justice to a Filipino domestic helper found killed and burnt in a Kuwait desert. Mian Corvera reports.
A Filipino overseas worker was found burnt and dead in a desert in Kuwait. Migrant Workers Secretary Susan Tuts Oples said the remains of the 35-year-old victim were found Sunday, January 22. The victim, identified as Jubilee Ranara, a domestic helper in Kuwait. Oples says the son of Ranara's employer was arrested and investigated.
Employer ni Ranara.
Kinalulungkot namin na ibalita yung pagpaslang sa isa nating kababayan. Pangalan niya ay Jollibee Ranara, 35 years old. Natagpuan na sunog ang bangkay at iniwan sa disyerto.
Oples says she visited and talked to Ranara's family this morning. According to her family, the last time they talked to Jubilee was last Friday, where she complained about the abuses of her employer's son.
Ang sinusumbong niya yung anak na lalaki at yun daw ang malupit sa kanya. At yun naman ang nasa kamay na ngayon ng Kuwaiti Police.
Oples refuses to give more details on the case as the victim's family requested for privacy. Department of Migrant Workers has created a team to be deployed in Kuwait to assist in Ranara's case.
Atin tatantanan tong kasong ito hanggat yun ang pangako namin sa pamilya. Hindi natin tatantanan hanggat hindi nakakamit ang tunay na hustisya. The fact na kahapon na report, kahapon na tagpuan, ngayon naaresto yung primary suspect. Ibig sabihin ano naman sila, mukhang mabilis naman ang nagiging aksyon nila at nakikipag-ugnayan din kami sa DFA para sa legal assistance naman para tiyak na meron nakatutok na abogado sa kaso na ito.
Meanwhile, during a consultation meeting of the Senate Committee on Migrant Workers, a OFW group said more Filipinos are facing charges because of debt. Some seek assistance from the group because their employers blackmail them. OPLE appealed the group to submit a victim's name and their employers for the department to take action. These include possible blacklisting of the recruitment agency that deployed them abroad. OPLE assured the department has enough funds to defend Filipinos against abuses abroad, especially in Middle East. Mean Corvera for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. is set to officially appoint Acting Bureau of Corrections or Bucor Director General Gregorio Catapang Jr. as its permanent head. Justice Secretary Crispin Remulla made the announcement during his speech for the release of the latest batch of inmates at the New Bilibid Prisons or NBP in Muntinlupa City. Remulla says Catapang's appointment papers await President Marcos's signature. Meanwhile, Catapang says his marching order is to regionalize jails under Bucor. He is also set to lay down his roadmap for Bucor for 2023 up to 2028.
Sa pagdating ng Presidente ng Sabado at napag-usapan na namin ang permanent appointment ni General Catapang at we expect it anytime.
3 to 4 years may sara na natin itong New Bilibid Prison na hindi itong headquarters. And then we'll be having a roadmap from 2023 up to 2028. Ano ang ine-expect na ng ating mahal na Pangulo na magagawa pa natin? And then finally, of course, yung reforms na kailangan.
Coming up, the gunman who killed 10 people in California is found dead. A building collapse in Syria claims at least 16 lives. And the U.S. wants to donate Russian weapons to Ukraine. Mata ng Agila International. We'll be right back after this short break. Don't go away.
It is a signal to the world that we are open for business.
Open for Business with Cesar Vallejos. Every Sunday, 9 p.m. This portion is brought to you by 318 Automart, Arlex Trading and Construction Supplies.
The news continues here on Mata ng Agila International. In California, a mass shooting in a dance club Saturday night left 10 people dead. The gunman has been identified as a 72-year-old Asian man. Los Angeles County Sheriff Robert Luna identified him as Hu Can Tran. He was found dead in a cargo van that police had surrounded Sunday morning. The tragedy began Saturday night when Tran entered a dance club in Monterey Park and opened fire. In addition to the 10 fatalities, another 10 people were injured. Some 20 minutes later, Tran was spotted walking into a dance club with a gun in nearby Alhambra. He was tackled and disarmed but managed to get away. On Sunday morning, police officers in Torrance, south of Los Angeles, located a van matching the description of the one Tran was believed to be driving. They followed it into a shopping center parking lot. Luna says when officers approached the vehicle to contact the driver, they heard a gunshot coming from within the van. At that point, they called for assistance and the vehicle was surrounded by 2 armored vehicles. SWAT officers eventually approached the van and found the man inside dead of a self-inflicted gunshot wound. The motive for the mass slaying remains unknown.
Thailand's local police report that 11 people, including 2 children, burned to death in a passenger van crash. Traffic accidents are common in the kingdom, which has a notorious road safety record, particularly during busy public holidays. According to Colonel Ying Yospol Dej, the van carrying 12 people was traveling from northeastern Amnat Charoen province to Bangkok. It veered off the highway in central Nakhon Ratchasima province Saturday night. He said one man had been able to climb out the window. The rest of the passengers were trapped and died in the blaze. A volunteer on the local rescue team said the van exploded 30 seconds after it was engulfed in flames. Initial reports say no leak was found on the gas tank. Police are still investigating what caused the vehicle to veer off the road.
A dozen people are dead following an attack by Al-Shabaab militants in the capital city of Somalia. According to police, a suicide bomber set off a huge explosion after an armed group of 6 people stormed the mayor's office in Mogadishu. The blast killed 6 civilians as well as the bomber. The 5 remaining militants died in a gunfight with security forces. 16 others were injured in the attack. Al-Shabaab, a military group linked to Al-Qaeda, claims responsibility for the attack. The group has been trying to overthrow Somalia's government for 15 years. It wants to impose its own interpretation of Islamic law on the country.
A building collapse in Syria claims at least 16 lives, including 5 children. The state news agency says a 5-story structure in the city of Aleppo fell down Sunday. The collapse is being blamed on a water leak that weakened the building's foundations. Rescuers and firefighters are sifting through the rubble looking for survivors. So far, 4 people have been rescued alive. The Interior Ministry says the building was home to 7 families. Much of Aleppo has been destroyed during the country's civil war, which has been going on for nearly 12 years. The fighting has left many buildings in poor condition. Building collapses are not uncommon in Aleppo. Many people have been displaced from their homes because of the war. They end up moving into places that are not structurally sound.
General Laura Richardson, who heads the Pentagon's Southern Command, claims Washington wants to donate Russian weapons to Ukraine. Richardson says there are talks centered on supplying the 9 Latin American countries with U.S. weapons if they donate their own stocks of Russian-made gear to Ukraine. She observes that 3 of these nations, Cuba, Venezuela, and Nicaragua, have close relationships with Moscow. But she did not clearly state whether these countries would be included in any potential arms swap talks. Meanwhile, the Pentagon has pushed U.S. arms manufacturers to step up the production of weapons sent to Ukraine. Multiple reports say the effort to arm Kiev's forces has left American stockpiles near the point of exhaustion.
Alexei Arestovich has resigned from the position of external advisor to the office of the president of Ukraine. Since his resignation, he has been openly critical of the ongoing war. Arestovich says Ukraine has squandered the opportunity to prevail in the conflict with Russia. Speaking in an interview with political analyst Yuri Romanenko, Arestovich says that a win for Ukraine seems very unlikely. He knows the assessment of Polish President Andrzej Duda that there is basically no certainty whether Ukraine will survive. The former aide's interview comes as a Norway army chief estimates that Russia has suffered 180,000 killed or wounded in Ukraine so far. The army chief adds a figure for Ukrainians is 100,000 military casualties and 30,000 dead civilians, according to estimates released Sunday. Norwegian Chief of Defense Eirik Kristoffersen gave the figures in an interview with TV2 without specifying how the numbers were calculated.
RT News reports that Ukrainian forces are hiding tanks in residential buildings. The news outlet shows footage of Kyiv's hiding spots in Artemovsk and soldiers making fortifications on the land. RT Media also claims Russian troops are on the outskirts of the town and could breach Kyiv's defenses soon.
Some tense moments for passengers aboard a Ryanair flight traveling from Poland to Greece following a bomb scare Sunday. Fighter jets escorted the plane to Athens International Airport, where it landed safely. The Boeing 737 was carrying 190 passengers and crew members. Authorities say they received a phone call warning of the bomb as the plane was over Slovakia. Air traffic control then alerted the pilots. Initially, Hungarian warplanes escorted the aircraft. When it entered Greek airspace, 2 Greek F-16 jets took over the task of accompanying the airliner. Before landing, the plane was diverted over the sea as a precaution. Once on the ground, it was directed to an isolated area of the airport. Police checked the plane and luggage but found no evidence of explosives.
A lawmaker suggests the government should consider Clark International Airport, or CIA, as an alternative gateway to decongest Ninoy Aquino International Airport, or NAIA. House Minority Leader Marcelino Libanan says 50% of flights from NAIA should be transferred to CIA by 2025. This is the year he expects a recovery of global air travel from the COVID-19 pandemic. Libanan notes the move will avoid disruptions to passengers in case another technical glitch happens at NAIA, like the incident on January 1st. The lawmaker says the base's Conversion and Development Authority, or BCDA, allotted a 10 billion peso budget to fully develop Clark International Airport as an alternate gateway. It would decongest NAIA and accommodate the growing passenger traffic in the country. Libanan says privatization will not resolve NAIA congestion because there is no area for expansion for the country's premier airport.
The Cybercrime Investigation and Coordinating Center, or CICC, vows to finish within the week its forensic investigation on the January 1 technical glitch at Ninoy Aquino International Airport, or NAIA. The probe aims to confirm whether the glitch was caused by a cyber attack. CICC Executive Director Undersecretary Alexander Ramos confirms that they sought help from TAILS, the manufacturer and provider of NAIA's Communications Navigation and Surveillance Air Traffic Management, or CNSATM. During a congressional briefing by the House Committee on Transportation, Ramos admitted that TAILS' help is needed because there is some coding in the system log that they could not understand. Ramos is confident that 1 week is enough to verify the theory of a cyber attack on NAIA's air traffic management system. Up next, residents of Wuhan, China are not afraid of COVID. Anti-government protests erupt in Tel Aviv, Israel. And Arizona dismantles a shipping container wall on the U.S.-Mexico border. Mata ng Agila International will bring you back more global news in just a few moments. Don't go away.
Balik kusina na naman ang inyong paboritong cooking show.
Katakam-takam na recipes. masarap na kwentuhan at walang sawang tawanan. Kasama ng ating espesyal na celebrity guests na tiyak na magdadala ng kasiyahan kasama ang aking pinsan na si Sandy Daza.
Kain na! Dito lamang sa Lutong Daza sa Net25.
Susunod sa Counterpoint, ang bagong muka ng pagbabalita ng Net25 News. Kikilalanin.
If ever I'm gonna go back, gusto ko po yung something na talagang I will be proud to be a part of.
Kasama si Attorney Sal Panelo at multi-awarded broadcast journalist Ricky Matay.
Hindi ko palalagpasin ang pagkakataong ito, attorney. I want to ask you.
Sa Counterpoint, Miyerkules alas 10:30 ng gabi, dito sa Net25.
This is the first time I'm actually gonna reveal it.
This portion is brought to you by Source Alliance.
Authorities say 4 people died while 9 others were injured after a crane collapsed during a festival in Kilvidi village, India. Local reports say the crane was unable to bear the weight of the people and suddenly collapsed. The incident also instilled panic among the people and created a stampede-like situation. Namili police immediately detained the crane operator and launched an investigation.
A popular Cameroon radio journalist who had been missing following a so-called abduction has been found dead. His employer and the police said that on Sunday. Martinez Zogo was a 51-year-old managing director of the private radio station Amplitude FM and the star host of the daily program Gridlock. He had been missing since Tuesday. The prosecutor's deputy and his wife found and recognized Zogo's body. Zogo's death was confirmed by an anonymous police source. Following the brutal abduction of the journalist, Zogo's car was found badly damaged outside a police station. The International Press Institute urged Cameroonian authorities to promptly investigate the horrific murder and ensure that those responsible are brought to justice.
Residents of China's Wuhan say they are hopeful for the future and no longer afraid of COVID-19, 3 years after the city was locked down over what was then a mysterious virus. Beijing ordered Wuhan to lock down to suffocate the outbreak in January of 2020. Since then, COVID has left millions of people infected, if not killed, while also affecting the global economy into unrest. After almost 3 years of the pandemic, many countries around the world have returned to normal, just like China, which lifted its hardline zero COVID policy last month. At the start of the year, Wuhan has gained the strength to show its improvement state. According to a delivery rider, people are coming together to celebrate, adding that the worries and depression they have endured during the peak of the pandemic have been slowly resolved. In addition, a local resident looks forward to having better days ahead.
刚刚开始还不么害怕，后来慢慢的那个封城了以后，我是就有点担心了。但是我们那个政策蛮好，我们基本上都没有感染，都在屋里那个隔离的，都在屋里的封闭的话，那1个多月都还蛮好。
Tens of thousands of anti-government protesters filled the streets of Tel Aviv on the weekend. It was during the largest demonstration so far since Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu returned to power. An estimated 100,000 people voiced their discontent over several controversial moves by the new administration, the most right-wing in the country's history. The government seeks to limit the powers of the Supreme Court to overturn laws. They say the court has a left-wing bias. Demonstrators say the changes go against democracy. They add the government has become a dictatorship. They also say politicians would have more power in appointing judges. Saturday's rally follows other protests that have been held nationwide. Protesters say they won't give up until they win.
In Afghanistan, the Taliban is following through on a ban on poppy cultivated, it announced in April of last year. According to the decree, authorities say poppy crops will be destroyed and burned. It warns anyone growing the plant will be prosecuted under the Sharia law. Afghanistan is the world's biggest exporter of poppies. Sap from the plant is used to make opium and heroin. Afghanistan has a near monopoly on those two drugs. According to the United Nations, the Middle Eastern country produces between 80 and 90% of global output. Many farmers facing tough economic conditions have resorted to growing the illegal crop because of high demand.
A wall of shipping containers installed just a few months ago by the former governor of Arizona was being dismantled Friday. The makeshift wall cost $100 million US taxpayer dollars. Republican Doug Ducey ordered the huge line of shipping containers to be placed at the frontier between the United States and Mexico. This was during the final months of his administration in what he said was a bid to stem illegal immigration. But after being sued by Washington for putting the containers on federal land in the Coronado National Forest, Ducey agreed in December to remove them. Ducey has since been succeeded by Democrat Katie Hobbs.
United Nations Chief Antonio Guterres is calling on countries to translate their promises into tangible actions. Promises of free, equitable, and quality education for all. Arlene Ocampo has the details.
January 24 is the International Day of Education. In observance, the United Nations sends out a message to invest in people and prioritize education. In a message, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres says education is a fundamental human right, the bedrock of societies, economies, and every person's potential. However, Guterres says without adequate investment, the potential will fail. He says investment is critical to achieving Sustainable Development Goal number 4. Sustainable Development Goal number 4 is free, equitable, and quality education for all by 2030. Gutierrez says now is the time for all countries to translate their commitments into concrete actions. Actions that create supportive and inclusive learning environments for all students. He says now is also the time to end all discriminatory laws and practices that hinder access to education. The UN chief calls on the de facto authorities in Afghanistan in particular to reverse the ban on access to secondary and higher education for girls. Gutierrez calls this outrageous and self-defeating. According to UNICEF, over 600 million children and adolescents across the globe are unable to attain minimum proficiency levels both in reading and mathematics. This despite 2/3 of them being in school. And worse is the case for out-of-school children because their foundational skills in literacy and numeracy are further from grasp. Arlene Ocampo, Washington, D.C. for Matana ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Florida Education Commissioner Manny Diaz Jr. has defended the state's decision to block the teaching of a high school African American Studies course. He describes the subject as indoctrination into critical race theory. This comes after Florida's actions were criticized by the Biden administration. Diaz says the White House has been spreading lies. He explains that the state of Florida rejected an advanced placement course filled with critical race theory and other obvious violations of Florida law. The commissioner says the state already proudly requires the teaching of African American history. He adds they do not accept woke indoctrination masquerading as education. Diaz notes that officials objected to the books proposed for the course, which include topics such as intersectionality and activism, the reparations movement, and Black feminist literary thought.
Investigative reporter Matt Taibbi says he discovered a pattern of increasing government control over Twitter. Taibbi told RT's John Kiriakou that he made the discovery during his examination of the social media platform's files. Since purchasing Twitter for $44 billion in October, Elon Musk has released batches of documents. These files shed light on the platform's previously opaque censorship policies. Musk enlisted independent journalists to break each document dump, and Matt Taibbi was the first chosen. Published communications revealed a company-wide effort to suppress reporting on Hunter Biden's laptop, the contents of which implicated the Biden family in numerous foreign corruption schemes.
A pair of scuba divers have captured rare video and photos of a 2.5-meter giant squid swimming in the waters off Japan's west coast. Yosuke Tanaka and his wife Miki operate a diving business in Toyooka City in the Hyogo region. Earlier this month, they were alerted by a fishing equipment vendor who spotted the squid in the bay. By boat, the couple reached and found the creature floating near a rocky shoreline. The enormous squid had striking eyes but appeared weak with its slow-moving tentacles and fins. Tanaka says pieces of the creature's skin were peeling off from its trunk. Giant squids are known to live in the waters around Japan and occasionally wash ashore. But seeing them alive in the wild, well, that's very rare.
A controversial mining project in Chile has been shelved. The billion-dollar project was to be built near a nature reserve that is home to a rare species of penguins. Opponents staged protests opposing the open-pit mine and port project in the country's north. Plans were to extract iron ore and copper. Opponents say the Dominga mine would have had an impact on the nearby Humboldt Penguin Reserve. The reserve is home to 80% of the world's Humboldt penguins. The Chilean cabinet vetoed the $2.5 billion mine, but the project did have its supporters. Many people living in the area near the proposed mine say it would have provided much-needed jobs, giving an economic boost to the region. Andes Iron, the company proposing the mine, says it will appeal the decision.
Coming right up, UFC legend Glover Teixeira retires after a brutal title fight defeat. Hawkeye star Jeremy Renner recovering at home after snowplow incident. And Avatar, The Way of Water, crosses the $2 billion mark at the worldwide box office. Catch more global news when Matanong Agila International returns.
Alam namin ang iyong pagsisikap. Dama namin ang iyong mga sakripisyo. Kita namin ang pagharap mo sa bawat pagsubok. Kaya sa kabila ng mga hamon ng buhay, nandito kami para umalalay. Kasi katulad mo, gusto rin namin ang magandang bukas para sa kanya. Hatid namin ang dekalidad na edukasyon at makabagong pasilidad sa abot kayang halaga. Kaya huwag ka na mangamba. Sasamahan ka namin tuparin ang mga pangarap niya. Maaasahan mong sulit dito ang mga pinagsikapan mo. Sa aming mga makabagong pasilidad at sistema ng edukasyon. Mailalabas natin ang aking talino at mga kakayahan niya. Kahit sa munting halaga, makakasiguro ka na makakasabay siya sa mabilis na pag-ikot ng mundo. Sa New Era, karamay mo kami sa bawat hamon. Kaagapay mo kami sa bawat hakbang. Kasama mo kami sa bawat ngiti at tagumpay.
We bring you more stories here on Matanong Agila International. The Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, or BSP, has raised the interest cap on credit card transactions to 3% a month or 36% a year. BSP Governor Felipe Medalla says the increase would help banks and credit card issuers cover higher costs related to the efficient handling of consumer transactions. Medalla asserts that the decision was also consistent with the PSP's objective, keeping credit card pricing affordable without jeopardizing the long-term viability of credit card operations. The decision will also help banks adjust to the series of hikes in the BSP's policy rate to 5.5% from 2% at the start of the COVID-19 pandemic. Meanwhile, the BSP kept the ceiling on the monthly add-on rate that credit card issuers can charge on installment loans at 1%. The maximum processing fee on the availment of credit card cash advances also remained at 200 pesos per transaction.
Nikkei says Japan's trade deficit hits a record high of 19.97 trillion yen, or $155 billion. Citing official statistics, growth in Japan's exports reached 98.18 trillion yen, or a surge of 18% last year. At the same time, imports climbed by more than 39% and totaled 118.15 trillion yen. Sources say the surge in Japanese exports is attributed to the recovery from the coronavirus pandemic in 2022. Foreign sales of Tokyo's vehicles grew 21.4%, while steel exports increased 24.2%. Japan also noted that exports to China increased just 5.7%, slower than its sales to the U.S. and European countries.
A new industry body report reveals that car sales in the European Union are declining. The European Automobile Manufacturers Association, or ASEA, reports that the EU passenger car market contracted by 4.6% last year to just 9.3 million units. This is the region's lowest level since 1993, reported this week. The report adds the slump was mainly due to the impact of component shortages in the first half of the year. The market, however, improved from August to December, with new car registrations expanding by 12.8% in the last month of the year. Overall, in 2022, only Germany managed to post a growth of 1.1% among the EU's 4 largest markets. It was helped by the strong result in December. The other 3 markets all performed worse than in 2021, with Italy posting the steepest decline of 9.7%, followed by France with 7.8% and Spain with 5.4%.
With fears of recession everywhere, some of the world's largest technology companies are executing massive layoffs. On January 18, Microsoft said it will lay off 10,000 employees, reducing its workforce by 5%. Amazon eventually slashed over 17,000 jobs. Amazon, Microsoft, Meta, and Alphabet have also cut a huge number of their staff. Unlike its tech peers, Apple did not follow the same general trend. Analysts say Apple's resilience can be explained by its slower hiring pace during the pandemic. Reports say the company tends to grant fewer perks to its workers. Apple's success also attributes to iPhone sales growth. Last year, the tech company announced a 9.7% iPhone sales increase year-on-year. Though the company experienced a difficult year, its revenues from services increased by 5% last year. Analysts say they do expect Apple to decrease its workforce, but not through layoffs. They say the tech giant will simply not replace its leaving employees. In addition, it can also modify the perks granted to workers.
UFC legend Glover Teixeira has retired after a brutal title fight defeat. The Brazilian fighter said
Liverpool and Chelsea played out a goalless stalemate, while Newcastle keeps its top 4 status. Our UK correspondent Keith Dimabuyo reports.
Liverpool and Chelsea did little for their chances of climbing into the Premier League's top four with an uninspiring 0-0 draw as Newcastle went third after another goalless draw at Crystal Palace on Saturday. In a repeat of last season's league and FA Cup finals, which Liverpool won on penalties after 0-0 draws, neither side could break the deadlock at Anfield to remain 10 points off the top four. The visitors introduced new €100 million signing Mikhailo Mudryk off the bench in the second half, and the Ukrainian came as close as anyone to a winner when he fired into the side netting. Jurgen Klopp, at the very least, was satisfied with the first Premier League clean sheet since October. Newcastle missed the chance to go 2 points clear of Manchester United before their trip to the leaders Arsenal on Sunday. The Magpies did enough to edge above United on goal difference as they extended their unbeaten run in the league to a club record 15 games. At the other end of the table, Everton's 69-year stay in the top flight looks ever more precarious. An 11th defeat in 14 matches puts more pressure on Frank Lampard's position as Everton boss. From the United Kingdom, this is Keith Dimabuyu for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Novak Djokovic will continue his quest for his 10th Australian Open title after eliminating the last Australian in the tournament. He makes it to the quarterfinals for the 13th time in his career. Djokovic dominated Alex de Minaur by 6-2, 6-1, and 6-2 at Rod Laver Arena. The 35-year-old said he was determined to win in straight sets against the Australian, who seemed nervous during the match. Djokovic did not compete last year due to the Australian government's ban and deportation against him over his vaccination status. The 9-time champ will face 5th-seeded Russian Andrei Rublev in the quarterfinals on Wednesday. The other quarterfinal matches include Americans Ben Shelton and Tommy Paul, American Sebastian Korda taking on Russian Karen Chakhanov, and Greek Stefanos Tsitsipas battling Czech Jiří Lehika.
The Mrs. Universe Philippines Foundation has crowned 9 title holders, 6 of whom will take part in the Mrs. Universe pageant in Bulgaria this year. The main title of Mrs. Universe Philippines went to Veronica Yu from Quezon City. The Mrs. Universe Philippines FD and North Pacific Asia crown went to Guinness Angeles from Nueva Ecija. And the Mrs. Universe Philippines FD and Northeast Asia title went to Lady Chatterley Sumbeling from Pangasinan. Virginia Evangelista.
Yes, hindi pa huli ang lahat because we as Mrs., the mothers will represent also. And hindi pa huli ang lahat na to fulfill our dreams, na magampanan natin na yung mga pangarap natin before na maging beauty queen. It's not too late for the mothers to do it.
Yes po, tulad po ng tinatahak ko ngayon, I'm a single mom ng I have 1 daughter po. Yun. Akala ko po noon nung nabuntis ako, stop na po yung beauty pageant journey ko. Pero nung nakilala ko po or nalaman ko po yung about Mrs. Universe Philippines, yun po, nabuhayan po ako ng loob and nung nanalo po ako, ang ganda pong opportunity talaga. Ang dami pong nag-open na doors.
I joined the pageant foremost is to, of course, advocate po yung advocacy natin. Initially, during the Mrs. Universe Philippines, ang advocacy ko is about our nation's peace. Yan. So, syempre, sundalo po ako. So, yan po ang dinadrumbit natin for the Filipino people to embrace peace.
Tapos I decided also, yeah, I'll go for it because I was a teenager before when I gave birth to my firstborn. And I was into showbiz, into modeling, and almost going to join pageants. And I said, why not this time? And I want to share my advocacy about single moms.
Bata pa, no? All 6 of them will compete in the 2022 Mrs. Universe Limited pageant in Bulgaria on January 30, with more than 100 delegates from different parts of the world. The global tilt is mounted by a Bulgaria-based organization established in 2007. Singer-entrepreneur Maria Charo Calalo, Mrs. Universe Philippines National Director, and herself the Mrs. Universe Philippines title holder for 2019-2020. 2020 mounted the national pageant.
Yes, actually, one of my advocacy talaga is to empower every woman. And of course, like what Mrs. Universe tagline, empowering the women of today and inspiring the children of tomorrow. So that's what I'm doing right now. I'm so happy na, I'm the one who inspired them of becoming a beauty queen also. Kung ano yung dream nila na hindi natupad during their younger age, na it's not too late na ipagpatuloy mo to continue kung ano yung hindi mo natupad na pangarap.
It was also announced during the program that the Philippines will host the 2023 Mrs. Universe pageant, where more than 100 participants from different parts of the world are expected to take part.
Hawkeye star Jeremy Renner has confirmed that he has returned home following a snowplow accident earlier this month. Renner revealed in a tweet reply that he had been discharged from the hospital. He said he broke 30 bones and thanked everyone for their messages. He also tweeted a photo of him starting physical therapy. Captain America Chris Evans replied to Renner's tweet, sending him love and asking if anyone has checked on the snowcat. Renner replied to Evans with winking and laughing emoticons, saying the snowcat needs fuel. Meanwhile, reports say that the Hawkeye star will have at least 2 years of recovery before he can go back to work. But another source insists Renner is crushing all progress goals and is making a positive comeback.
Director James Cameron makes film history again on the weekend. As reported by Deadline, Cameron's long-awaited sequel, Avatar: The Way of Water, has now made over $2 billion in worldwide grosses. Aside from the remarkable worldwide total box office, the alluring film continuously holds the #1 spot for the 6th consecutive weekend. The movie is described by a source as Disney's latest financial achievement. Director Cameron says he aims to produce at least 3 more Avatar sequels going forward.
Worldwide anime and comic book conventions are popular gathering places for fans of sci-fi, fantasy, and adventure. At Anime Impulse LA, cosplayers enjoy the freedom to express their creative side in a safe and welcoming environment. In Pomona, California, Eva and Alan share the story.
Anime and cosplay converge at Anime Impulse Los Angeles, presented by Toyota.
Packing convention halls, fans eagerly scoop up merchandise and, quoting one of the guests, look to connect with fellow nerds.
Anime is appealing because it's kind of a fun escape from reality. It's like stressful going to work, going to school.
It's really great to be part of a community where we're all nerds, we're all big fans of different series, and we're all here for the same reason. We're all here to support and celebrate the things that get us excited.
I'm very surprised because I never knew conventions like this existed and that people dressed up. I always wanted to dress up, and just to be able to do it on any occasion like this event here is just, it's fun.
It's fun to be around people who enjoy the same things as you are, and then from there you can talk to a lot of other people. LA's a big city, you know? Anime conventions, where you go. Yeah. We were also talking about how Colorado, when we were growing up, didn't have much of there's not a big anime community, so yeah. So you come here.
I really enjoy it when other fans come up because of the fact that it's something we both share. It's something that we have in common. Cons are a great way to have like an icebreaker and start connecting from there. And then it's also like really amazing to find out what each of us love about that series and about that character.
I've been doing this for a very, very long time. It's just a nice feeling, that sense of escapism, and have just some light weight lifted off your shoulders for about a day or two, and just having fun with friends and getting to meet new ones.
So when it comes to merchandise, my friends can attest to this. There's no control. I love to buy everything from prints to keychains to merchandise. I just love it. When I'm excited about a series or a character, I have to own like everything that character or that series is on.
It all depends on your budget, really. But sometimes even if you don't have the budget for it, you just gotta buy it. It's just so addicting. You want it. It all depends on you. If you can afford it, or if you just don't care and just be like, okay, I'm just gonna get it.
As you've heard, when it comes to budget, these fans don't try to stick to one.
So for merch, the sky's the limit. After all, can you really put a price tag on happiness?
Eva and Allen, Pomona, California. Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
That looks so much fun.
Yeah,
And to help you start this week, here's a quote from Jean Sibelius, a Finnish composer. Pay no attention to what the critics say. A statue has never been erected in honor of a critic. For me, it's simple. If you're not helping pay my bills, your opinions don't matter.
Use those critics to strengthen who you are.
That's right. And that's a wrap for tonight's news. Catch the latest updates on our social media channels. I am CJ Hero.
And I am Nina Richie Alago Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.